Did your children know about how your childhood had been? Did your wife know, Inga?
Well,
How did that begin?
Before we get there, they knew I had to learn something, and I
Mm-hmm.
was only 15 when I had to leave school. And I learned how to polish diamonds.
Right.
These were people who came from refugees from Belgium who had started a small factory, and somebody suggested maybe they will give you a job. I went there, I thought it was a good idea, and gave me a broom, and I had to sweep out the factory. This was in Bedford still. Then when the Blitz was over, they moved back to London, and I came back with them to London, and I continued, and I became a diamond polisher and earned my living that way. 1945, end of the war, my wife had been in Auschwitz.
Right.
She came over, her sister was here. By an indirect route, she came to London in 1945. I met her somewhat later. When I came back from Bedford to London, I looked for a Jewish organization, and someone said, "Why don't you join Maccabi?"
Mm-hmm.
So I went to Maccabi in Compton Gardens.
Mm-hmm.
They talked to me, interviewed me, and discovered that my background. And they said, "Well, we think you would be happier in Eaton Avenue at the Bar Kochba."
Oh, right.
Because they didn't want me and sent me somewhere else. I met my wife.
She was a member of the Bar Kochba
She
Club.
became a member of Bar Kochba
right.
when she came to London.
And of course, the two of you had shared something of the background
Yes.
that you have, although
That's
for
right.
her that she didn't get out until
Yes.
after the war.
That's right.
So it's both of you with this story.
We
Did you
never
share
talked
it?
about it.
Right.
We didn't
Okay.
speak German.
Okay.
Her German was very good. She used to teach German to English children, O-level, A-level.
Right.
But we never spoke German, and we never talked about it. She didn't want to talk about it. For her, that was then, now is now, we're going forward, we're not going backwards.
Mm-hmm.
It was her attitude. And there was nothing, we didn't talk about it back. So my son, I think he resents it to this day, that he didn't know about it, that he didn't talk about it.
Although very common among people who had come here as refugees.
That's right.
But you did begin to speak, and indeed I know you've even gone back to Cologne to speak
Yes.
to children there. So what happened to change from this is a thing we do not speak about to
That's interesting.
I've got to pass this story on?
I used to go to Edgware.
Yes, Association for Jewish Refugees.
That's right.
Yeah.
We went there, and in Pinner, regular meeting where we have speakers or tea, we meet our friends. And when I first joined, we were all the same age. We were all of the same background. First generation
Yeah.
survivors, if you like. And one day we had a lecture by a lady. Bettine Lebeau came from Belgium. She was a child, a very small child, who survived, and her parents had survived. She came from Antwerp. And she used to give talks. She came to HR, and she talked about her philosophy. Her cup was always half full, never half empty. That was her approach to life. And she came to talk to us, and she also talked some Yiddish. And her Yiddish was the Yiddish that I had learned in the diamond trade.
Right.
So I spoke to her afterwards. I said, "Your Yiddish, I know your Yiddish. That's the way the people spoke who I used to work with." And she used to run the Yiddish group at the Survivor Center.
Okay.
So this is...
So this is the Holocaust Survivors Centre in Hendon.
Yes, in Hendon at the time.
Yes.
So I joined.
Okay.
And I've been going there every Wednesday ever since to the Yiddish group. And then one day there was a phone call from Germany. This German radio reporter,
Oh,
I
right.
think. And she got in touch with the Survivor Center. She wanted to meet me.
Right.
In her research, I appeared somehow. So I replied to her. And we've become very good, close friends,
Lovely.
would you believe? Which is something, I can't believe it to this day.
And did she bring you back to Cologne to speak? Was
Well,
the
she
one who
called
did
me
it?
one day, or sent me a message. Was I coming to Cologne? I said, why? It's the 75th anniversary of the deportation
Right.
in 1942. I hadn't even realized it was. And she wanted to know whether I was coming for this commemoration. So I thought, well, I suppose it's a reason to go. They had a memorial get-together in Cologne on the day of their departure, on the 20th of July. And I went over there. They closed the road and there were a lot of people there, and all sorts of people spoke about it, and they asked me to speak as well, you know. But
Did you speak in German there?
Yes.
Yeah? Is your German still fluent?
A 13-year-old's
Right.
German
Yeah.
fluency.
Sure.
So I told them, yes, I'm one of the children.
Wow. So what happens next? How does this experience and what humanity can learn from this experience and what the Jewish community can learn and Germany can learn, how does this get passed on? Do you have feelings as to what should happen in future generations when you're not able to speak anymore?
Put it this way, I think it should be remembered. But I was asked many times,
Of course.
what do you think? Have we learned? I don't think so. We haven't learned anything. We can see what's happening again and again and again. We always used to say, education, you have to tell the children, they should learn from it. Do the children learn? I don't know. That's the one time where I was in Cologne, and my friends' children said, would I come to their school to talk to the group? So I did. I always wonder if they listen, whether they listen because they have to be quiet or whether they actually listen to what you say. And apparently, a year or so later, a teacher was trying to talk to them about the new refugees from Syria that were coming into Germany.
Yeah.
And this little boy put up his hand and says, I know a refugee. So the teacher expected him to talk about one of the new arrivals. He meant me.
Oh. It made an impact.
So it obviously had listened, and it had remembered that I had talked to them about that story which happened years ago. So he had remembered.
So I'm hoping, as we come to an end now, that two things. First of all, what you have shared with us today, this is something that we can keep as a record. We can put on our synagogue website, make sure that it's available to people. And secondly, the sculpture that's being made of you says there is somebody whose story has got to be told. And I know that Francis has made many more and is creating that sense that there are people whose stories we have to hear. So, Kurt, at this point, can I say thank you so much for all that you've shared. I really appreciate it. And you are a wonderful storyteller, and tells me, you make these awful experiences come to life so that we hear about it with your customary good humour as well, and recognising that there's a story to tell and we need to remember.
Yes. Okay.
Thank you so much.
My pleasure.